not only does she live and breathe day-to-day life, but she's also extremely passionate about mentoring others and bringing out the best in them so they can fulfill their passions and goals. She's an influencer, a change maker, and has over 25 years of illustrious experience in the travel and customer experience industry. Carolyn has been a vocal champion of women and people of color and believes in creating environments where everyone has equal access to education and opportunities for growth. She, without hesitation, immediately accepted when I asked her to be willing to share her experiences today and her personal journey as being a successful woman leader. I'm really excited to hear from her today. Thank you again, Carolyn, for accepting the invite and joining us here today. And I'll hand it back to Punita to kick us off.
Thank you, Sid. So welcome again, Carolyn, and I'm looking forward to this interaction with you. So let me start with when you began your career. What guided your path to becoming a leader, an influencer, and a CX champion? Did you kind of experiment it on the way, or were you always sure of what you wanted to be?
Well, first of all, I want to thank Punita, both you and Sid, for such an amazing introduction. And I want to say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all across the globe at Movate. I'm very, very honored and excited to be here this morning. To answer your question about when I began my career and what guided my path to becoming a leader and an influencer with CX champions, it started first when I was in university. And during the time that I was in university, just as I was getting ready to graduate, my parents went into divorce court and our monies were frozen pay for university. So it was really important for me to be able to finish my last year of university. And at the same time, I had to quickly start my career. And I started as a contact center agent in the travel industry, supporting travel, customer service, and sales. This launched me into a passion for serving people and serving our customers. And that's really where it all started. I did experiment along the way, but my experimentation came in the form of, number one, being the best customer service and sales agent that I could be. And the reason for that is once I completed my degree in that role, I really wanted to be able to move up in the company that I started in. And I asked one of my leaders at the time, who had a corner office, I asked her, how did you get the corner office and become director of the contact center? And what she said to me was very powerful. She said that one of the greatest things that she'd asked in her career was to consistently ask what metrics are required in order for me to be considered for the next role. And she would focus on those metrics and her people achieving those metrics because of leading a team, and that's what propelled her career. So I learned very early about the importance of personal data and team data and how that plays a critical role in moving forward in any career. What that led me to do next was become a top reservations and customer service sales agent. And my data as a top performer allowed me to regress to a team leader, then supervisor, and that's where my team's data came into play. Very quickly, my team was the top performing team through care and motivation and coaching of each of the people on the team, which resulted in becoming a manager at that time. And within roughly 9 months or so, I was director of running my own area. But it was all because of care for people and the data that made that jump happen. Along the way, you asked, did I experiment or was I always sure what I wanted to be? Honestly, the only thing that I really knew that I wanted to serve. I'm going to pause just for a moment and ask the person that is CSS123156 if you could please mute the phone and the presentation so that everyone can hear. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. So what ended up happening, back to the story, is that I didn't realize I was experimenting. I was really only focused on being in an industry of serving customers and serving people. And that ended up in experimentation. Wherever I was asked to serve, I served. And in each role, data was the primary focus. My team's data and helping them achieve and be the best they could be. And as a result, it would launch me into the next experimental role. So I've been in the contact center industry my entire career, but I was asked during that time to move from directing one contact center to 9 different contact centers. At that time, they added training delivery to my role. Then I was asked to serve contact centers by leading the technology aspects of moving our contact centers from brick and mortar into supporting online travel and creating the technology and leading the technology team so that we would be more agile and equipped to support our customers while at the same time achieving our business goals of revenue and booking share for our various carriers on the airlines that we were responsible to sell and our various hotels and cruises that we were responsible to sell. And next serving role after technology is I came back to the contact center world in its entirety, but by then we had bought additional businesses and we had moved into looking at selling contact center as a service, similar to what Movate does today. So this was another experiment, and the goal was to make sure the teams that were serving our various partners were performing according to the new performance metrics. Things like American Express online travel, Capital One online travel, and businesses of the like. What that led to is a career leading a global contact center footprint that included training and technology and product, which was the role that I had when Orbitz Worldwide was sold to Expedia. So during that time, I was responsible for our business that supported our leisure or business to consumer business, our corporate travel business, and our partnership business, and also served as part of the merger and acquisition and deal team for Orbitz Worldwide. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely, Caroline. In fact, I was just thinking that throughout this whole experimentation of yours, one thing seems to be has been a constant, which is being the best in what you do, and that's what you've been doing throughout your career, and that's such an inspiration for all of us who are listening to that. Thank you so much for that, Caroline. So, on to the next thing that I wanted to ask you. What has been the most significant barrier in your career? Because as women, especially, and we start off our career, there are a lot of things that we kind of, it comes up as a barrier, and we think twice, we hesitate, we kind of stop when we kind of have such barriers in our life, right? So what has been something which is the most significant barrier in your career, and how did you overcome it? And if you could share that with us, it would be an inspiration for us to learn from it and move on with our careers as well.
So I'll start by asking for everyone to mute one more time. Thank you. The most significant barrier that I experienced in my career truly was being a diverse person. And what I mean by a diverse person was that I would be the only person in the room in my career as a leader that was a woman. I would also be the only person in the room that was Black. I'm from Kenya, East Africa. And the third part was I was generally the only person in the room that was a first-generation immigrant and a foreigner. So when I think about those three things, there were a few barriers that came as a result of that. One was that as a woman, there were assumptions that were made about what my role was supposed to be in the room. And serving as a leader was my focus and my role. But sometimes people thought that I was serving as an administrative assistant or the person that was supposed to get a coffee for the meeting or things like that. Other times it was surprise that, somebody that was a woman of color was a leader in that level. Other times it was surprise when we would be in a meeting and perhaps other people in the meeting were speaking a different language when my role became global. There was an expectation that they could have the conversation that I wouldn't understand because I'm multilingual. It would be a surprise that I would speak a different language like French or Spanish or German. But those barriers became assets. And what I mean by that is that releasing the fear of other people's perceptions became an asset in the way that I led. I never at one point in time allowed those barriers to hold me back. And the reason I didn't is because my father had a situation and he did that. The second was to not be afraid of being on your own and doing something new. When he came to the U.S., he had the clothes on his back and the comb, and he came to a sponsor family without knowing or meeting any of the people to be one of the original exchange students on John F. Kennedy's Peace Corps exchange program. To me, that was an amazing thing. And he came in the middle of the civil rights movement in the United States, where all kinds of things were going on. And during the time that he was an undergraduate university student, John F. Kennedy, who sponsored his program, was killed. And thank goodness he was allowed to finish his undergrads, but then he was sent back to Kenya. And he still didn't lose focus. He became a doctor, he went to medical school, and by the time Gerald Ford became the president of the U.S., Gerald Ford put more money into the program and asked for the top graduates of the original 20 students to come back. Of those graduates, there were only 3 that were allowed to come back. My father was asked to come back, and he came back for his medical studies at Northwestern University and became a doctor, and he's still focused on being a top 3%er and went to one of the best hospitals to do his internships at residency, Mayo Clinic in the U.S. And so when I think about his story and how he raised me with these examples, the other part of his story is that I was raised in a culture where, as a woman, we were supposed to do certain things. And we were supposed to be homemakers and, this kind of a thing. And I was also supposed to marry a very specific person. My father, he was agile and adjusted to the change in the U.S. And he didn't necessarily agree with my choices of who I married, but he respected the fact that he brought me to this country and that I was exposed to different choices. And he was agile enough to make the adjustments and continue to support my family, my children, and my career, despite the way that he thought I should move forward in my adult life. The other reason I think my father is amazing is because all along the way in my career, he has been the number one champion for putting myself forward and not being afraid to take the next opportunity. And I say that's because I really only applied in my entire life for that one job as a contact acceleration. Everything else has been opportunity and experimentation from one job to the next job to the next job. And sometimes when opportunity comes in front of us, we don't recognize that that's what it is. We have to open our minds to make sure that when someone comes and asks for us to do something, it could be the catalyst that launches us into the next thing. And your faith in whatever you believe in, and the fact that people come to you and ask you to do these things for a reason that couldn't be bigger than you, is what creates all of these different changes that could happen in your life. And my father was the trailblazer in that particular area.
So I just said that you want to be the best at everything, and now I know where you learned it from. I think your father's
Yes.
been a truly inspirational person, and I'm loving the way this conversation is going, because it's just not you sharing us about experience, but we're getting to know you up close and personal. You're talking about your father, you're talking about you as an individual, about you being a woman, you being a woman of color. It's amazing listening to you, Carolyn. Thank you so much for being so open, so direct, and so sharing your personal lives with us. Thank you so much for that. And now, from an inspiring leader, I'd also wanted to know, at the workplace, how important do you think it is to have a mentor to grow as a leader? And did you have a mentor? And if you did, if you could share some experience of having a mentor at workplace.
When it comes to having a mentor, my father is always my number one mentor. I think everybody got that. But it is important that you seek out mentors personally and at work who are not like you, who have experiences that are different than you, who might have specialties where you are weak and have opportunities to grow. So I do think that you should have not just one, but at least two mentors in the workplace. One of those mentors should be someone who is not like you in any way, shape, or form. And the reason for that is because they're going to have a different perspective on whatever your challenges might be. And they should be your trusted confidant in pushing you to do things that you might not otherwise feel comfortable doing. The other mentor should be where you aspire to go. So an example might be if I am a financial analyst and ultimately I want to become head of a bank and I'm working at a bank, then as an analyst, I might have someone who is at the next level that's a mentor. But then I might also seek out that banker who is what I ultimately aspire to do and be sensitive to their time, but ask them very specific questions if they're a mentor. The more specific you can be with your mentors, the easier it is for them to help you. I do think it's a critical move for you to have both at least two mentors in the workplace and at least another one that is not at your workplace that you can have good quality discussions about what's going on at work and how you can be better at what you do. Those diverse perspectives are critical to anyone's learning.
Thank you, Caroline. So it's not just one mentor, having multiple mentors to give you a diverse overview helps. Thank you so much for that. So what's been your leadership style, Caroline? And did you have to adapt your natural leadership style for the corporate world?
Honestly, I really haven't. My leadership style is to learn constantly and to serve. And I truly believe that it doesn't matter what role you have, you can always be learning from other people. It doesn't mean that you will always agree with other perspectives, but if you keep an open mind and you're open to the lessons that anyone might have to bring, even in challenging situations, leading with a servant's heart and leading, assuming the best intentions of those around you, I think is really a comfortable way to be open to learning, to be open to helping others be the best they can be. And by doing that, you naturally become the best that you can be also.
I think from the start of this conversation, I've heard you say serving as a word just kind of come so often, and that truly marks a leadership style which everybody would be able to relate to and would love to work with. So a leader who would like to serve, who would like to be collaborative with the team members, that's awesome, Caroline. And from your deep experience of working in the customer experience industry, what in your views are the top three qualities of a great CX leader?
I think that number one, listening. And when I say listening, I mean actively listening with the intent to understand. This is a very challenging thing because often as leaders, it's very easy to listen and very quickly say you know the right answer. But when you do that, you might miss out on understanding the heart of the question and hearing what is underlying that best serves the business or your team or your customers. So I would say listening is number one. I would say number two would be to be a constant learner. And what I mean by that is that if you are not constantly learning from your team, from others in the business, from external resources like reading, podcasts, conferences, all those kinds of things, then it's very challenging for you to be able to share those to help your business and your team be better. So being a constant learner. And then the last I would say is high integrity. And what I mean by that is that your integrity is beyond reproach. It means that you are always doing what is right by your people and your business. You're always as truthful as you can possibly be without breaking confidences, depending on your role. You are always focused on believing in your people with the same integrity that you expect others would believe in you. And so I would say those are the top three things.
And that's the message, my dear Movators. Actively listen, constantly learn, and always work with high integrity. Thank you so much, Caroline, for that. So how do you think this whole customer experience industry has also changed for women since you started?
Oh my goodness. I think the first thing is that instead of being the only woman in the room, the change is that our societies globally are much more open to women being present, successful, and aiming higher in the room. That is a big paradigm shift. It excites me everywhere I go, and in all that I read or see, that women are game changers. They are doing these incredible things. Whether you look at the political landscape of the globe and how many women leaders are out there in various countries, when you look at businesses and how you see so many female leaders becoming CEOs or chief this or chief that. When you look at the CX industry in itself, and you see that there is a push across the globe to promote strong female leaders from within companies or across companies. When you look at boards and the presence of women on really, really strong Fortune 100, Fortune 500 global companies, and how women play a critical part. When you think about the movement of diversity, equality, and inclusion, and the fact that when you look for experts in this area, even experts in this field come from diverse backgrounds, and how if you want to be a successful company, it is imperative that you have diversity as a paramount focus for your company so that you can even be considered to be a strong company. If you look at companies where everybody looks the same, right away there's a question about whether they can get the right candidates because of the way that they present themselves. The opportunities for women are enormous. And as a mother of 4 daughters and 1 son, it is so inspiring to me to think about the futures that our children have because of diversity, equality, and inclusion as a global focus today. I think the sky is the limit for women, and that women are doing things, even as young women. When you look at Greta Thunberg and you think about her focus on climate and improving our world in that way, she started, I think, at 14, if I'm correct. But imagine that you have a 14-year-old influencing change globally because of her belief system and her family believing in her, and how many young people are doing extraordinary things like her across the globe. I think the time is now for all women and what they really aspire to do.
So as we head into that space and where women are making a difference, How can leaders make their organization truly gender inclusive? What do you think that leaders can do?
I think it starts with a few things. The first thing is that leaders must insist on ensuring that when they are posting for positions, they have a diverse slate of candidates. It starts there. If you don't insist on having a diverse slate of qualified candidates, then you're doing a disservice to yourself as a leader. Number two is that as leaders, we have to get out of our own way by focusing on not that which is easy when it comes to hiring diversity, but challenging yourself to think about what does the business need in terms of qualities, and what does your team need in terms of qualities. When you think about that and you have a diverse slate of candidates, you're much more highly likely to look for whatever it is that your team doesn't have and make sure that diversity is a focus in that area, especially if your team doesn't have diversity of thought. If everybody looks the same or behaves the same way, then you're doing something wrong. And you really need to consider the fact that your team could be more effective, your business could be more effective if you ensured that by having a diverse slate of qualified candidates, you are bringing in the right mix of people to help your team and business be successful.
So consciously committing to having a diverse talent is what you say is important as leaders that we should do. Thank you for that, Caroline.
I would even add one more thing. I will something to add to that. As leaders, having an accountability partner who helps push you to ensure that you do those things is also important. It's really challenging to hold yourself accountable, but it's even more challenging when you seek out that someone, whether it's your mentoring business or whether it's a business partner, that helps hold you accountable to do what you said you were going to do when it comes to hiring diverse candidates.
True. Thank you for that, Caroline. So if you had to give one tip for the future women leaders who are here as part of this discussion today, what would that be?
Gosh, I would say to be unapologetically authentic in all that you do. Because as women, you are special. You have talents that are untapped. And if you are unapologetically bringing your best self, you're blazing the trail for more women and young women to do what you've done.
I couldn't have asked for a better answer. Unapologetically authentic. And I don't know how, it's just, we just love this, Caroline. Thank you so much for that. And I think all of us have this message to take back today. Let's be unapologetically authentic in what we do and how we do things. That's beautiful. So from a different career interest, if you were not a CX leader, what else would you have been, Caroline? Just to know.
If I were not a CX leader, I truly believe that I would be serving in some other capacity. It's just my thing. I love it. Right. I would probably open a school or be teaching in some type of a capacity.
I think you've been inspiring us, each one of us, with every answer and every response that you give us to start up a school, to be there, to be teaching people. So you're not just a learner, you're also a teacher, and that's amazing, Caroline. But I'm not going to take all your time. I'll also open this forum for the audience to interact with you, because I've been talking to you all this while, and I've had the pleasure of interacting with you. But I'd also extend that to my fellow colleagues who are here with us today. So if there are any questions from the audience, I'd request you to unmute yourself and ask, or if you would like to also post the questions in the chat, we could do that as well. But I'd really love you guys to unmute and speak directly to Caroline today.
Please do.
All right. Caroline, this is Arvind. I'm part of the account management team out of Dallas. I'm short of words because you've shut all my questions. It's been so reassuring to hear you. Terrific conversation, Caroline. In a long time, it's been a touching conversation. Thank you so much. And the only thing I want to ask you is, how do you maintain this calm and poise? Where does it come? What do you do?
My calm and poise, is that what you asked? How do I maintain?
Yeah, your calm and poise. Yeah.
I share openly that I'm a very spiritual person. Um, I am a Christian. I believe in God. And in my heart of hearts, there is nothing that comes my way that I don't have support from God in how I handle it. And honestly, my faith is what creates peace and calm in the way that I interact. I do have a type A personality, so my kids will tell you that, I'm a little overly organized at times, but my calm when it comes to career and work and serving people, it comes from my heart and it's faith.
Thank you. Thank you. I look forward to seeing you, Carolyn. Thank you.
Yeah, you're most welcome, Arvind.
Carolyn, this is Vivek from Chennai, India. Great it's more like heart-to-heart of talk. We almost forget we have around 300 audience here. Thanks for being so candid and open with us. So yes, 25 years, amazing journey. And you must have seen so many changes happen in the customer service world. And as we head out for the next 5-10 years, from your immense background, what is that you envision that is going to happen in the next 5-10 years? Where we are headed in terms of the customer service.
Oh goodness, there's so many things. So I would say the biggest thing in terms of change has been technology. Technology is constantly changing. And if you think about 25 years ago, where someone had to walk in and talk to someone for customer service, to where we are now, where companies have self-service tools, you can chat, email used to be a common channel, and now email as contact channel is probably the worst way because it's multiple contacts. So I would say technology is definitely the future. And to be more specific, I believe that companies are going to continue to look for self-service in a way that is consistent across platforms, whether you are, going to someone's.com or self-service on mobile or self-service in app. I do believe that self-service and making self-service convenient, connected, and consistent is critical to any company. But on top of that, what that means is for those of us that are in the customer experience industry and in the contact center industry, our teams are going to have to be prepared to handle the most difficult customer service issues or sales issues. And when you think about that, our technologies, as we continue to run customer experience and contact center organizations internally, have got to stay up to date with the ever-changing technologies that our consumers are using. And without staying on top of that, companies are going to begin to start to fall behind, because even when you're contacting someone for help, if it isn't as equally connected, convenient, and consistent when you speak to a human, our society across the globe isn't really going to buy into it. The best companies are going to be at the top, leading the pack with technology in both places.
Thank you, Carolyn, for that detail.
You're welcome.
Hi, Caroline. This is CJ from the Philippines. Hi, everyone, as well. Anyway, I love your story. Your answers are truly inspiring and powerful. So my question is, have you ever had to push for systematic change around new or unpopular ideas? If so, how did you do it?
Yes, first of all, salamat for your question. I appreciate
Wala, wala. It's welcoming Tagalog in Philippines.
Thank you so much. I would say that there are several different things that are in business that I've had to push for and been challenged with. And I think the foundation of any push, when you really, really want someone to buy into, or a leadership team or your finance team to buy into it, is you really have to have a great business case. And what I mean by a business case is, I'm not talking about a multiple page white paper or a multiple page PowerPoint presentation, but you have to have a very succinct, what is it that you need? The next part needs to be, why is that thing important? What purpose does it serve? And then the last would be, how much, well, not even the last, how much is it going to cost for that change to occur? And what is the return on investment of that cost? If it is a quick hit change, you want to lay it out the same way. You know, what is it? Why? How much is it going to cost? What is the return on investment? And what is the impact, bottom line, to the longer term business? If we constantly think about what we're presenting that way, keeping it simple with those categories and making sure that we've done our homework so that it's very thorough, I think that that's the way to go for sure. Thank you for your question. And you know, greetings back to the team in Costa Rica. I saw that just pop across.
Okay. Salamat or thank you, Caroline.
You're back among those.
This is Pallav from Richmond, Virginia. I truly appreciate the way you speak and the way you guide us. I hope that it will help us to succeed in our near futures and also in many days. I have one question for you. And we saw that there are many rubrics that we have to maintain for a healthy customer relationship, as well as to maintain our organizational success. And sometimes those rubrics conflict with each other. Those are colliding with each other, and at least in my professional life, I found a couple of incidents. I am sure that you also had those kind of scenarios. So what was your priority? How you have resolved those conflicts and make it a win-win for every scenario?
It is a fact that in any business, there could be competing rubrics or priorities or even incentives, right? You could have a situation where the sales group is incentivized in one way, but other parts of the organization are not incentivized or even have the same kind of goals that are aligned with that. I think the first thing is to understand, why are there competing rubrics? What is the heart of those rubrics? When you understand why, then it helps you understand how to work better with other parts of the organization that might have a competing rubric, or in a contact center or with a client-facing situation, you might have rubrics that are competing within the same line of business. And once you understand why those are there, then you can partner with the various owners of who created the competing rubrics so that you can align more closely on how to work best together. I think that focusing on what you can control is critical in this area. For example, you cannot control that a salesperson is selling the business one way, knowing that you're going to have to serve the business a different way. What you can control is understanding that there's going to be a competing rubric for someone that is out there selling. There is going to be competing incentives for the person that's selling compared to the person that's going to have to support whatever's been sold. When you understand that, then you can work more closely in partnership with the sales team by sharing what you actually can do and preparing them so that they're selling exactly what you're capable of serving versus it being two different entities. The more that people work together in understanding some of these competing rubrics, competing goals, performance targets, etc., and why they exist, it helps us understand how to best work together so that each group can achieve whatever it is that's competing. I think on the flip side of your question is, what if it's in a particular area and they're competing rubrics? And so an example might be that you're supporting the sales and service. And for the sales area, there are incentives and targets, but the call flow or how you're handling it from a sales perspective is different than the way that you're held accountable to hold it from a servicing perspective. I think by meeting with the group that has set those expectations of leadership and talking about where there's conflict and seeking assistance and buy-in on how to bring those conflicting rubrics together so that everybody wins is really important. But understanding is the foundation of all of that. You can't enact change if you don't understand where people are coming from.
Got it. Thank you very much, Caroline.
You're welcome.
Caroline, it's Bernie from Costa Rica. I am truly inspired by hearing you, and just your answers have been great. Coming from a diverse background as well, I have lived through some of those circumstances and some of those challenges that you have shared. And my question for you, and I know you've alluded to this already, as much as we would like to think that we have made all the progress that's necessary into the organizations in our industry to become more accepting and taking more advantage of the diversity backgrounds, what advice specifically do you have for all of us leaders, men leaders in the industry, to help promote and get the best out of all of that diversity, not only from women, but also from the different diverse groups?
I think it's a few things, and this is a great question. I think the first is, I talked about how critical listening to understand is. I truly believe in today's society that we have a large population of people, regardless of diverse background, that are quick to pass judgment before they've taken the time to understand. And I'll give you an example. And I'm going to use different cultures as this example. In the American culture, you can say certain things to a person of culture that would be very quickly perceived as negative. A good example would be if someone used certain words to describe a Black person in the United States compared to how someone might use the same words if translated literally to be respectful to a Black person in another country. You're from Costa Rica, so I'll use in Spanish. When I'm in Spanish-speaking countries with my teams, I will hear La Negrita Carolina, which is basically the Black Carolyn, if you translated it directly. That is not what someone from a Spanish-speaking country means in the way that it would be received in the United States. It is literally a term of endearment to hear La Negrita Carolina, and it's all in the way that it's said and the heart that it comes from when people will call me that. I am not offended in any way, shape, or form because I understand that it's being said in Spanish as a term of endearment. Versus if you say it in English, the Black Carolyn in the United States, that might not be perceived as a term of endearment. Had I not sought to understand the nuances between English and Spanish and the intent that the person has in saying what they've said, I would have missed an opportunity to receive a large population of people that I work with every day in the wrong way, with the wrong heart. But because of taking the time to understand where they were coming from and why they were saying my name that way, I have the joy of not only understanding language, but receiving people the way that they intend for me to receive them. That's just one example. In our societies, when we talk about diversity and we don't pause and seek to understand and we jump to conclusions, it is human nature in some cultures to automatically assume, judge, and complain. And I find that in my walk of life, and this might not be easy for everyone, but I believe in this, that if someone says something to me that's unusual, I'll give you another example. As a Black woman, I love the fact that I can change my hair all different kinds of ways. I can wear it natural. I can get extensions. I can wear wigs. I can do all these things. I am not offended if someone asks me about my hair. In fact, I'm so not offended that I don't want it to be uncomfortable. So if I'm speaking with a bunch of people like I am with you, I will say, my wig is acting crazy. It keeps getting in my face, and I'm trying to speak to a group of people. And I think that that's funny, but I'm also trying to make it comfortable. So if somebody has a question, they know that I'm an open-minded person and I'm not going to be offended. I would rather take the moment of someone asking me about hair to explain that, African American women or Black women all over the world have this wonderful opportunity to express ourselves in any way that we want to wear our hair, naturally, straightened, extensions, wigs, whatever it might be. It's a great opportunity for us to express ourselves. And I present myself as an open-minded person first. If someone says something potentially offensive, to seek to understand, what are they really trying to say? What is the intent of the conversation? Is it really to offend me, or is it really a moment to pause and share what is being received and take a moment to educate that person so that they don't say the same thing where someone is highly likely to receive it in a negative way? For each one of us that does that based on our diverse backgrounds, our experiences, the world would be such an amazing place. But each one has to teach the next one. Each one has to be open to listening with a pure heart, knowing that generally speaking, human beings interact with each other with positive intent. If you do that, it creates a peace and a calm like none other, because you become unoffendable.
Well said.
Wow. Thank you.
It's amazing. For what of time, we'd probably just take one more question from the audience, because we are already 57 minutes into the discussion, and I know all of us would love to hear from Caroline, but maybe another 5 minutes, Caroline, if that's okay. We'll take one last question and then we'll wrap this up. Would that be okay?
I think that would be fine. Let me just take a quick peek and make sure. I actually do have to run right at the top of the hour to another meeting. But I cannot express what a joy it has been to share with all of you. These are incredible questions. And if Movate will have me, I would be happy to do this again sometime in the near future.
Asante. I want to bring that smile.
Hakuna. Yeah.